It feels like there shouldn't be many mysteries left. We can watch hurricanes form from space. We have robots driving across Mars. We can look billions of years into the past using telescopes powerful enough to see some of the earliest galaxies in the universe. Some of the biggest mysteries on Earth aren't hidden on distant planets. They're here, beneath the ocean, buried under forests, locked inside ancient books. The more we learn about our world, the more we seem to uncover questions we never expected to ask. And that's what makes these mysteries so fascinating. Not because they're impossible to solve, but because they remind us that, despite everything we've achieved, our understanding of the world is still unfinished. For most of human history, the world was full of blank spaces. People didn't know what was beyond the horizon. Maps ended with empty oceans, mountains, deserts, and forests hid places no one had ever documented. Over the centuries, those blank spaces slowly disappeared. Explorers crossed oceans, scientists uncovered the laws of nature, satellites mapped almost every corner of the planet. Today, it can feel like we're living at the end of that journey, as if humanity has already figured out how the world works. But that's an illusion, because every major discovery has a habit of creating even bigger questions. The more we learn about the universe, the stranger it seems. The more we study Earth's history, the more missing pieces we uncover. Knowledge doesn't always make the world feel simpler. Sometimes it makes it feel even more mysterious. Imagine waking up to a sound so powerful that it shatters windows hundreds of kilometers away. The ground shakes beneath your feet. The sky flashes with blinding light. For a few terrifying moments, it feels like the world is ending. Now imagine walking outside afterwards and finding millions of trees lying flat in the same direction. Not burned, not chopped down, simply flattened. That's exactly what happened in a remote part of Siberia on June 30th, 1908. Today we call it the Tunguska Event. Because the explosion happened in such an isolated region, there were very few eyewitnesses. No cities were destroyed, no crater marked the impact. Just an enormous section of forest that looked as though an invisible hand had swept across it. When scientists finally reached the area years later, they found around 80 million trees had been knocked down across more than 2,000 square kilometers. But there was one problem. Whatever caused the explosion was gone. The leading explanation today is that a small asteroid or comet entered Earth's atmosphere at tremendous speed. Instead of reaching the ground, it exploded high above the forest in what's known as an airburst. That single explosion released energy comparable to a powerful nuke. Without leaving the kind of impact crater most people would expect, today that explanation fits the evidence remarkably well. But the event still captures people's imagination because it feels almost impossible. An object from space exploded with incredible force. And if it had happened just a few hours later, the Earth would have rotated enough for the blast to occur over a much more populated part of the planet. History could have looked very different. Every single day, our planet travels roughly 2.6 million kilometers around the sun, while countless pieces of rock and ice orbit the solar system. Most are harmless. Many burn up high in the atmosphere. We never even notice them. But every once in a while, space reminds us that we're part of a much bigger neighborhood. Which raises perhaps the biggest question of all. If the universe is capable of producing events like this, what else might be out there? For thousands of years, people have looked up at the night sky and wondered the same question. Are we alone? It's one of the oldest questions humanity has ever asked. And strangely, we're closer than ever to answering it. Over the last few decades, astronomers have discovered that planets aren't rare. Thousands have already been confirmed beyond our solar system. And scientists now estimate that our galaxy alone may contain hundreds of billions of planets. Some are giant worlds made mostly of gas, others are frozen. Some orbit two stars instead of one, and a small number appear to sit in what scientists call the habitable zone, where temperatures might allow liquid water to exist. That doesn't mean life is there, but it does mean the ingredients could be. And if our galaxy contains that many planets, what about the rest of the universe? There are billions of galaxies, each filled with billions of stars. The numbers become so enormous that they're almost impossible to picture, which makes the silence feel even stranger. We've never confirmed life anywhere beyond Earth. No alien civilization, no unmistakable radio signal, no spacecraft. And that's what makes this mystery so unsettling. It isn't just that we haven't found anyone. It's that statistically, many scientists once expected we would have found something by now. The idea is known as the Fermi paradox. If intelligent civilizations are common, where is everybody? Maybe intelligent life is incredibly rare. Maybe complex life usually disappears before it develops advanced technology. Maybe civilizations don't last very long. Or maybe the universe is simply so vast that even thriving civilizations remain isolated from one another. And then there's another possibility. Perhaps someone is out there, wondering exactly the same thing, asking whether they're alone. It's a strange thought. Two civilizations separated by distances so vast that neither one ever knows the other exists. If we discovered even the simplest form of life tomorrow, a single microbe beneath the ice of Europa, or in the clouds of Venus, it would completely change our understanding of the universe. Life wouldn't be unique to Earth. But if we search for centuries and never find anything, that might be even more extraordinary. Because it would mean consciousness, the ability for the universe to become aware of itself, could be extremely rare. Either answer would change history. Some mysteries have been sitting in plain sight for hundreds of years, locked inside libraries. One of the strangest examples is a book known as the Voynich manuscript. At first glance, it doesn't seem that unusual. It's filled with detailed illustrations, strange plants, circular diagrams, pages and pages of neatly written text. It looks exactly like the kind of book historians should be able to translate. Except no one can. The manuscript is named after the rare book dealer who rediscovered it in 1912, but the book itself is much older. Radiocarbon dating suggests the parchment dates back to the early 1400s. Since then, some of the world's best codebreakers, historians, and computer scientists have all tried to solve it, without success. The writing follows patterns that resemble a real language. Certain symbols appear more often than others. Some words repeat in ways that seem meaningful. It doesn't look like random scribbles. It looks very intentional. Over the years, people have suggested countless explanations. Maybe it's written in a foreign language, maybe it's a detailed cipher, maybe it's a medical text or an astronomical guide. Some researchers have even wondered if it was an elaborate medieval hoax. But every new theory eventually runs into the same problem. None of them explain everything. That's what makes the Voynich manuscript so compelling. It is not simply that we can't read it, it's that it looks like we should be able to. And maybe that's why this mystery has lasted so long. We want the story to make sense. Not every mystery stays the way it began. Details get added. Stories become more dramatic. Rumors spread faster than facts. And before long, people aren't talking about what actually happened. They're talking about the legend. No place shows that better than the Bermuda Triangle. Stretching between Florida, Bermuda, and Puerto Rico, for decades, stories have claimed that ships vanish without a trace, aircraft disappear from the sky, compasses stop working. Some people have blamed aliens, others have suggested underwater civilizations, strange magnetic forces, even portals to another dimension. The truth is, the Bermuda Triangle is one of the busiest shipping and flight corridors in the world. Thousands of ships and aircrafts travel through it every year. Like any heavily traveled region, accidents have happened. The area can also experience sudden storms, powerful waves, and unpredictable weather. In many cases, those explanations fit the evidence remarkably well. Researchers who studied the records have found that the number of disappearances isn't unusually high compared to other heavily traveled parts of the ocean. That doesn't mean every case has been solved perfectly. Some incidents still have unanswered questions, but unanswered doesn't automatically mean supernatural. And maybe that's the most interesting part. When we don't have complete information, our brains naturally try to fill the gaps. Sometimes with reasonable explanations, sometimes with extraordinary ones. It's one of the reasons why myths exist in almost every culture throughout history. The ocean covers more than 70% of our planet. From space, Earth doesn't really look green or brown. It looks blue. Yet we've explored only a small fraction of the deep sea floor in detail. Think about how strange that is for a second. We've landed people on the moon. We've sent spacecraft beyond the edge of our solar system. Yet huge parts of our own planet remain almost completely unseen. The deeper you go, the stranger the ocean becomes. Sunlight slowly fades until it disappears altogether. Temperatures drop close to freezing. The pressure becomes almost unimaginable. At the deepest point in the ocean, it's more than 1,000 times greater than the air pressure you're experiencing right now. For a long time, scientists assumed almost nothing could survive down there. Instead, they found a world unlike anything anyone expected. Fish with transparent heads, creatures that make their own light, giant squids that remained legendary for centuries before finally being filmed alive. Entire ecosystems thriving around hydrothermal vents, where life survives without sunlight by feeding on chemicals rising from deep within the earth. And despite decades of exploration, we're still making remarkable discoveries. New species are found every year. Unknown underwater mountains continue to be mapped. Ancient shipwrecks emerge from the darkness, preserving moments of history that would otherwise have been lost forever. If the ocean can still keep so many secrets after all this time, it makes you wonder what else we've been looking at without fully understanding. The ocean keeps its mysteries hidden because it's difficult to reach. This next mystery is almost the complete opposite. People have been looking at it for centuries. Millions of tourists visit these places every year. Archaeologists have studied them for decades. Historians have spent entire careers trying to understand them. Think about the pyramids of Egypt, or Stonehenge, or Machu Picchu, or the enormous stone statues on Easter Island. They're scattered across different parts of the world, built by completely different civilizations, separated by thousands of years. But they all leave us asking similar questions. Not because we don't know who built them, in many cases we do. It's because we're still uncovering how they managed projects that seem almost impossible for their time. Take the Great Pyramid of Giza. It contains around 2.3 million stone blocks, many weighing several tons. The pyramid is aligned with remarkable precision, and despite being over 4,500 years old, it is still standing. Modern engineers have proposed several ways it could have been built. Ramps, sledges, clever engineering, enormous workforces. None of these ideas require aliens or lost super technology. What they do require is something we sometimes underestimate: human imagination. For a long time, people assumed ancient civilizations simply weren't capable of projects this ambitious. But the evidence tells a different story. These weren't primitive societies stumbling through history. They were skilled engineers, careful planners, expert stoneworkers, people who understood mathematics, astronomy, logistics, and teamwork. That's really the mystery. Not whether ancient people were capable, because they clearly were. The mystery is just how much knowledge has disappeared over thousands of years. Because civilizations don't only leave behind monuments, they also lose things. Techniques, traditions, knowledge that was passed from one generation to the next until somehow it wasn't anymore. Sometimes all that's left is the finished structure. And when that happens, we're left trying to solve a puzzle using only the final picture. Imagine walking through a city at the height of its power. The streets are busy, markets are full of people buying and selling goods, children are playing in the streets, builders are putting up new homes. Nobody wakes up expecting their civilization to become a mystery. And yet history is filled with places that did exactly that. Some were swallowed by dense jungle, others disappeared beneath drifting desert sands. Some were abandoned so gradually that no one noticed the moment they stopped being cities and became ruins. For a long time, people believed places like Machu Picchu or many ancient Maya cities had simply been lost. But in reality, they weren't lost. People left, nature moved in, and over generations, the world forgot they had ever existed. That's one of the strangest things about history. It doesn't always disappear in dramatic moments. Sometimes it fades so slowly that nobody realizes it's happening. A trade route changes, a river shifts course, several years of poor harvest put pressures on communities, political instability grows, conflict follows. Families begin leaving in search of better opportunities. One generation later, fewer people remain. Another generation passes. The city feels quieter than it used to. But eventually, there's no one left to maintain the buildings. Roofs collapse. Trees grow through streets. Stone walls disappear beneath vines. Centuries pass. Then one day, someone notices an unusual shape beneath the forest canopy. Archaeologists arrive. They begin digging, and little by little, an entire world starts coming back into view. New discoveries are being made every year using technologies like LiDAR, which can scan through dense forest and reveal ancient roads, cities, and temples hidden beneath the trees. In other words, history isn't finished. There are still places we haven't found, still civilizations we barely understand, still stories waiting underground. If entire cities can disappear, what else has vanished without leaving enough behind for us to recognize it? At first, these mysteries seem completely unrelated. The deep ocean, ancient monuments, lost civilizations, an unreadable book, the Bermuda Triangle, a forest flattened by something that fell from space, the search for life beyond. They're separated by thousands of kilometers, sometimes billions, and yet they all point toward the same idea. The world is far less understood than it appears. It's easy to think we're living at the end of discovery. After all, we carry the internet in our pockets. We can speak to people on the other side of the planet. We can watch rockets land themselves. It feels like humanity has figured almost everything out, but every generation has believed something similar. 100 years ago, we didn't know galaxies existed beyond our own. We hadn't discovered plate tectonics. We hadn't mapped the deep ocean. We hadn't even walked on the moon. Imagine what people 100 years from now will know. Maybe they'll read the Voynich manuscript. Maybe they'll uncover cities still hidden beneath forests. Maybe they'll map every corner of the ocean floor. Maybe they'll discover life somewhere beyond Earth. Or maybe they'll solve mysteries we hadn't even realized existed yet. Because that's the remarkable thing about curiosity. Every answer creates another question. Discovery doesn't shrink the unknown. In many ways, it expands it. And maybe that's why mysteries matter so much, because they remind us that there's still more to discover, that the world can still surprise us, that history hasn't finished revealing itself, that science hasn't reached the end of its story. Somewhere beneath the ocean, inside an ancient ruin, written in a forgotten language, or orbiting a distant star, the next great discovery may already exist, waiting for someone curious enough to find it.